Բարի երեկո, Օրակարգ հարցազրույցի հյուրը Հայաստանում Եվրամիության պատվիրակության ղեկավար Պյոտր Սվիտալսկին է. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for agreeing on the agreement.
It's a pleasure and honor to be with you.
By the way, is it only a diplomatic step forward in EU-Armenian relations? I mean, the agreement.
Well, the agreement is significant. The agreement has a big political value, but the agreement carries with it a real opportunity to reform the country, to bring real benefits to ordinary Armenians. So it is not simply a piece of paper and a set of wishful thinking or declarations. It is a real thing with clear benefits for ordinary Armenians.
What worries all the people in general? What would they feel on their skins from the agreement?
It will take time and it will need an effort, but there are several elements in the new agreement which can be very beneficial for ordinary Armenians. Look, a big part of the agreement consists in harmonizing Armenian legislation with the European Union regulatory normative basis. It means better protection for consumers, more stringent standards for food safety, better road safety, cleaner environment, better mechanisms for saving energy. So these are things which probably not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but if implemented, they will offer something new and better for ordinary Armenians.
It's the second month it has been signed. What has been done so far? If not, when will you start?
Look, now this agreement has to be ratified. This is the most important task. I understand from the statements made by Armenian officials that the necessary work is underway, that the National Assembly will soon be discussing it and hopefully ratify the agreement, as I heard recently, by the end of March. In the European Union countries, this process already has started, and Estonia, the outgoing presidency of the European Council, was the first country which ratified the agreement, and this process will continue. So that's the elementary prerequisite for having the benefits of the agreement, to ratify it and to implement it. The second issue is to develop a kind of road map for the assistance of the European Union and common action with Armenia in implementing the provisions. This week, the first committee on sectoral cooperation, the subcommittee on energy, transport, environment, civil protection, was having its session here in Armenia, and there will be subcommittees on other topics, and they will prepare this type of concrete roadmap, which will be agreed together as between partners, between Armenia and the European Union, and hopefully before summer we will have a concrete roadmap how this agreement will be implemented. And I understand that the Armenian side is doing its best in order to have such mechanism for national implementation in place already now, before summer.
There were rumors that three countries didn't approve the signing of the agreement. What happened in the end? How it happened in the end?
Look, rumors. Quite recently we celebrated the anniversary of Vladimir Vysotsky. And sometimes I have the impression that Vladimir Vysotsky is singing about us. You remember the song?
If you remind.
Словно мухи тут и там, ходят слухи по домам, а беззубые старухи их разносят по умам. Don't believe in rumors. These rumors are
so everything
rubbish.
was okay.
Seriously, I sometimes wonder how these rumors are generated, but the member states did a magnificent job. They had to put in place all the national mechanisms for approving the agreement within a very short period of time. And they did it. It showed that there was a political will everywhere even in countries which had some difficulties, like there was no government, there were elections, but everything was done on time and without political problems. So the European Union, I think, believes that this agreement is good, is important, and these rumors are simply false.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any controversial points in the agreement?
Look, when you analyze the conduct of the negotiations, of course, there were points which were quite easy to agree upon, but there were points which required time and effort, and there were points which required the search for mutually acceptable compromise. Some of the provisions of the agreement were agreed last moment, the preceding night when the president of Armenia was already in Brussels, but that's normal. That's how things happen.
Especially Nagorno-Karabakh resolution. It's the first time the three principles were signed like an agreement, in an agreement. It's not anymore a political statement simply.
Look, I will give you two examples of difficult issues which I think found very good solution. For the European Union, a difficult issue was the insistence of the Armenian side to have a more binding language on the start of the visa liberalization dialogue, which is understandable. But I think that finally the formula found there is a good compromise, which I think takes the process further. For the Armenian side, a point which was not an easy one was the insistence of the European Union to include in the text provisions relating to the so-called geographical names, cognac brandy issue. Again, understandable. The European Union is very consistent with all our partners on the protection of these geographical names. But I think that overall the prevailing climate during the negotiations was very constructive and very friendly, because this is an agreement based on win-win logic. It's good for Armenia and it's good for the European Union.
And you are usually very optimistic. Are you optimistic about the visa facilitation you spoke about? What do you think? How many years will it take us to have visa-free system regime?
Yes, I'm optimistic because I believe that one of the elements of our European identity is the free movement of people, the ability of people to travel. And I think that something what makes us European. And I believe that Armenia, being a part of the larger European family, is included in the process. So when you look at the provisions in the agreement and also in the Eastern Partnership Summit, this issue is on the agenda. Now Armenia is in the phase of visa facilitation. In order to move to visa liberalization, all the elements of the visa facilitation requirements should be fulfilled, and Armenia is doing a good job. I think quite recently there were meetings in Brussels, and the opinion of the European Commission is positive. So when these requirements are implemented, are fulfilled, and when the member states decide that there are all the necessary guarantees of secure and well-managed mobility, then the decision will come. When it's difficult to speak about dates, about the time horizon, but I think that this future is not too distant. So there is a need for an effort, consistent effort, not only for lobbying, but also for doing the necessary domestic things. And let's hope that the experience of other countries who benefited from visa liberalization, like Georgia, Ukraine, is good, which I think will encourage also member states to go for visa liberalization dialogue with Armenia. And then comes a process to determine the so-called benchmarks, which would have to be implemented before the visa liberalization happens. As you know, the experience of other countries, this list of benchmarks can be very long. In case of Georgia, more than 100 items. But I am optimistic, and I believe that this is something very important for Europe. This is something very important for Armenia. And as a person, for many years, I've been advocating Europe without borders. Of course, we are realistic. We cannot open the borders. But within Europe, if we consider ourselves to constitute a family of nations, we should be consistent.
Yeah. And what is European Union's benefit from Armenia as a partner? What are your expectations from Armenia?
Look, this agreement is part of a larger strategy of the European Union to ensure stable, secure and prosperous neighborhood. The European Union has realized that a lot of problems which affect the security of European citizens and the economic growth and others, they originate in the neighborhood. So the European Union has embarked on a policy of promoting stability and resilience of its neighbors. Armenia is an integral part of the larger European family. Armenia is not simply a neighbor of Europe, it is a European neighbor. That's the big difference. Armenia is a European neighbor. And I believe the European Union has a very sincere and very transparent interest having Armenia on a good economic track, prosperous Armenia living up to its aspirations. We do not have any hidden agenda. We do not have any geopolitical or other goals. All we want is to build a bridge between Europe, European Union and Armenia, a strong bridge, because we believe that Armenia is a full-fledged integral part of the European family.
So that is the neighborhood policy?
That's the neighborhood policy, that's Eastern Partnership and other frameworks.
You usually say that it is Europe is our civilization choice, and what about our geopolitical one? Don't they hinder each other? Don't they bother each other somehow?
Look, as a scholar, I believe that the age of geopolitics is slowly, but inevitably coming to an end. That the issue of territory, the issue of geographical location is no longer decisive in determining the future of a nation. Yes, sometimes geography can be a curse, as we know from the experience of many countries, also in Europe. But I believe that we are going through a period where space and time is so compressed that this geographical factor is becoming less relevant. But of course, I'm saying it as a scholar, but we are living in the real world, and in the real world, geopolitical thinking, geopolitical interests are every day present in decision making, in policy making. But I believe that it is possible for Armenians to develop a model of relations with the outside world, which will combine geopolitical interests of Armenia with its civilizational aspirations. I don't see a contradiction here, because I believe that it is legitimate for Armenians to feel that they are part of the European family, that they want to live by European standards, that they want to be part of the European way of life, that the European model of governance is something which is the best for Armenia. And I believe that reconciling these different considerations is possible, and I hope that we are on a good track.
What do you think? Can Armenia be ambitious enough to become a member, for a membership to European Union? So for the countries of South Caucasus, it's possible, yeah? So,
look,
for sure, I'm not speaking about short-term period.
Mhm.
In a long-term period, can Armenia be so ambitious to become a EU member?
The European Union says in its fundamental documents that any country of Europe can apply for the membership in the European Union. But as we know, not all European countries are interested. Not all European countries, as we see in the case of Britain, believe that even if they once opted for being a member in the European Union, that is something which should be forever. So in theory, from the political point of view, Armenia, being a part of the wider Europe, and Armenia is a member of the Council of Europe, and the Council of Europe is the reflection of how we perceive the borders of Europe, can apply. But everybody will understand that this is something which will be a sovereign decision of Armenia, if at all such a moment will come. But I think that what is visible now in Armenia is that many Armenians believe that the best path for development, in the political sense, in the sense of values, also in terms of economic governance, is what is applied in Europe. And I think we can do it without talking about what should be the final goal, what should be final objective. And that's what we are doing now with this agreement. We do not talk about the, let's say, finalité, as they say, the end of the road. We talk about
the beginning.
The beginning. What are the real things that can be done, bearing in mind the fact that Armenia has alliance agreements with other countries, that is part of another integration project, and so on and so forth. And still, bearing in mind all these considerations, we can do something, and that's what we are doing.
You usually pay much attention to media publications. Have you noticed something unusual after the signing of the agreement, before and after?
Less rumors.
Less rumors?
No.
Are you okay with the work we do?
No, I think that the reactions to the agreement were very positive, which is a good thing. I think it's good for the Armenian government, which negotiated the agreement, and also for us, because we see the encouragement now to be dedicated to the implementation of the agreement. That's very good. I like meeting with Armenian media. I consider them, at least the mainstream media, to be professional, to be responsible, and that's very good, because these are the European standards. Of course, there are media outlets that we don't probably want to talk about it now, but it's everywhere in many countries. But I believe that media in Armenia have a very important role, because, as you know, the tendency in development is going towards more transparency, more public knowledge, and without independent, without professional media, it's impossible to achieve the objective. And therefore, the European Union, although we do not support financially any media outlet in Armenia, we have no strings, so to say. Only thing that we can do is to provide a reliable information and a smile. But we support media in their very responsible tasks in Armenia.
So usually some media outlets write about that European Union is only about LGBT problems. You are very conservative, as far as I know. What is your opinion towards this?
Yes, we know that there are people who want to discredit the European Union by resorting to fake news and other false images, which are totally unjustified. as I explained, the beauty of Europe is the diversity, the plurality of arrangements. I always, if people say in some countries that Europe is associated with liberal approaches, I always give an example of a country which is a member of the European Union where divorces are not allowed. A country where when you marry for life. You call it a liberal approach? Not. But nobody cares, because every country, every nation within the European family determines its cultural approaches, determines its attitude towards these types of arrangements for the social coherence of the nation. So we have different arrangements concerning LGBT, concerning marriages, partnerships, abortion, and all these sensitive items. There is no European one-size-fits-for-all approach. And that's the beauty of Europe. But when we talk about the European values, we always highlight the question of dignity of people and their rights, which is very important. We talk about non-discrimination on any grounds. We speak that in Europe there cannot be people of secondary rank, second-class citizens. We will not allow it. So, but the arrangements concerning how the society should regulate these issues, marriage, divorce, abortion, it's up to individual countries. We do not impose. And we do not impose on Armenia in particular. So these are these rumors that sometimes people resort to. The rumors that Svitalsky was thinking a long time ago.
Rumors that are everywhere.
Yes.
You are usually passionate about Armenia. What do you like especially in our country, and what you don't do?
I am passionate about Europe. That's the only passionate object. Now, seriously, yes, I believe Armenia is a beautiful country with wonderful people, very talented people. Armenians are born with very high IQ. And Armenians are an ancient civilization. And as a person who devotes a lot of time to culture, music, theater, dance, I am here at home because Armenians like high culture. Despite different restraints and limitations, like lack of money, lack of sponsorship, Armenian artists are impressive. You have wonderful composers, musicians, actors, painters, and this is something I like very much. And this talent, everywhere I go, I can meet people with unbelievable talent. And of course, the beauty of the nature. Armenia is a beautiful country, beautiful landscapes, very diverse landscapes, sometimes very empty landscapes, which for European is very attractive. But at the same time, it's a safe country. You can travel freely. Nothing will happen to you, which I think still very few Europeans appreciate and understand. So I am passionate about building this bridge between Europe and Armenia. I'm passionate about saying that Armenians make a very important contribution to the European identity, because the European identity is based on the contribution of such nations, not necessarily big nations, not necessarily rich nations, but sometimes small, but yet very rich in terms of their identity, cultural, civilizational identity. And this is something what mobilizes me, what motivates me in my professional activities. That I believe that promoting this bridge between Europe and Armenia is based on my deepest conviction that it's the right thing to do.
Isn't there anything you don't like? Isn't there anything you don't like about Armenia?
It's not the time to talk about the things I don't like.
Okay.
No, on a serious note, there are two things which pose a kind of concern, both personal and professional. The first concern is that still too many young, talented Armenians leave the country. Armenia is not the only country which is facing this challenge. There are other countries in Europe, including in the European Union, where the outflow of young talents is really worrisome, including my own country, Poland, but also if you take other countries like Lithuania, Bulgaria, and others. This is a serious problem. And sometimes I believe that this is something of a priority, because what matters for the future of the country, as I said, is not territory, it's not location. Some people say, long time ago said, that demography is the destiny. Without young people, young talents, the bright future of Armenia is difficult to achieve. So this is my main concern, how to keep these young, talented Armenians, hardworking, ambitious Armenians in the country. The second concern is inequalities. Armenia, unfortunately, in the past years, due to several, sometimes very objective processes, has created sometimes big disparities in terms of income and way of life. And this is very bad. Armenia, again, is not the only country. There are other countries also within the larger European family that this rising inequalities are visible. But in order to have a stable and resilient country, this question of inequalities, in particular income inequalities, should be addressed, because it's bad for development. And having these disparities, it becomes very important that all people should feel equal facing the law, that law regulations treat all people equally, irrespective of how rich they are. That if I'm rich, it doesn't mean that I can buy education, buy justice, or even buy a fast passage on the Sevan highway.
Definitely.
Too many expensive cars speeding on the Sevan highway. So this is something very important, and we, with our modest resources, we are ready to contribute to tackle these two, I think, strategic problems for Armenia. But I am optimistic because I believe that the human potential in Armenia is big enough in order to tackle these problems. Armenia has the most important asset. It's the human capital, people. And with this, these people can achieve a lot.
Happy to hear it. How long are you going to stay in your Armenian home?
Well, as the ambassador, my term will be coming to an end next year, but that's a regular arrangement. And I think this is a good arrangement, because sometimes if you stay too long, your perspective becomes a little bit distorted. And it's not a secret that one of the diplomatic illnesses is that spending too much in one country, you change your role. Instead of promoting the interests of the country you represent, you
start representing the other country.
But as you can see, I enjoy working in Armenia. I enjoy working with Armenians, with all stakeholders. I can say that your government, your officials are very open and friendly. It is a pleasure to conduct a dialogue and to do things with them. And your government can set an example of openness and availability for contacts. Your people are wonderful. I love going to the countryside, meeting in particular young people. it has been quite enjoyable period in my diplomatic career, from the professional and personal point of view. But we will sum up my mission when it comes to an end. Okay?
Looking forward to it.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure.
Me too. Օրակարգ հարցազրույցի հյուրը Հայաստանում Եվրամիության պատվիրակության ղեկավար Պյոտր Սվիտալսկին էր։